the reason why we are now with you is also to let you know our project. So the second part of our discussion, I am very pleased to lead, is to present you some of the researchers from EasyNet. Okay, so they will give you just a brief presentation of the state of art of their context and the project, and we expect from them some comments both to your presentation and both to about their project. The order is this. First of all, I'll call Giulio Marchesini Reggiani, then Cristina De Cola, then Gianni Ciccone, Anna Campora, and Sabrina Licata. So I ask the speakers to introduce themselves and to start your speech. So I will pass the microphone to Giulio Marchesini Reggiani from Bologna, Emilia Romagna. Giulio, if you want to start your speech and comment.
Yes, thank Nerina, and thank Joy and Sarah for your presentation. I am in charge of the program inside the region Emilia-Romagna, and we are dealing with chronicity, and namely with diabetes and chronic heart failure. And I have to say that we are facing a lot of difficulties, and I appreciated very much your last slides on the several points that should be considered when planning an effective audit and feedback, and also that we need to be pragmatic. I would like just to say something about what we are facing in terms of difficulties, which are not only those of the pandemic and COVID and the need to move from front visits to visits by telephone or by any other possibility in order to avoid close contacts. But the problem is much more complicated. I am specifically involved in diabetes, and in the area of diabetes, we have a two-step situation of prescribing in Italy, because most of the drugs which are now planned or are part of the clinical guidelines for best practices in order to treat diabetes cannot be prescribed by general practitioners, but they can only be prescribed by specialists. And in order to have these drugs prescribed, the general practitioner have to address their patient to the specialists. So the problem is that if a patient is not addressed to a specialist, he will never receive these drugs. And if he does not receive these drugs, what is the responsibility? Is it the responsibility of the general practitioner who do not send their patient to the specialist, or is it the fact that most specialists are pressed by their agency to reduce spending, so they do not prescribe very easily these drugs? And I'm just wondering how we can, or how we could make together, and who should be the final utilizer of the audit and feedback, the general practitioner or the specialist? So it's a very complex situation. We are now trying to solve in a very pragmatic way. I think it is the only way we can do in order to see if inside the specific area there is some advantage or there is some amelioration of prescribing or treating patients with diabetes, and also which is the final, for example, the final risk, cardiovascular risk of our patient inside the specific area. This is a point I would like you to discuss, which is really difficult to disentangle from a audit and feedback perspective.
Sara, thank you, Giulio. Sara and Robbie, if you want to comment, but we have only a few minutes, Sara and Robbie, if you want to answer or to give us some comments on the speech of Giulio.
Very briefly.
Yep.
I should have said that we mainly focused on type 2 diabetes.
Yeah.
So for type 1 diabetes, it's mainly specialist care and specialist drugs. And in the United Kingdom, there are parallel national clinical audits of diabetes. So one concerns type 1 diabetes, and that goes to the specialist teams. And then the one on type 2 diabetes is mainly around targeting general practitioners. So it is much simpler in the United Kingdom when you're trying to decide what the target audience is.
Thank you, Robbie. Okay. Can we go on with the, thank you, Robbie. So we can go on with the, I would like to give the floor to Maria Cristina De Cola from Messina, Sicily. Thank you, Maria Cristina, please.
Welcome. Okay, hi to everyone. The A&F work package is to improve the clinical practice in managing acute myocardial infarction and ischemic stroke to reduce the mortality and the disability due to these cardiocerebrovascular diseases. So I want to thank the organizer of this meeting series for the opportunity of learning and discuss with other international research groups like the one presented today. It's a very nice talk. And so as Nera anticipated before, we changed the design of our study because of the pandemic, no? So we design a pre-post study in this moment instead of randomized control trial, and we have with a control group. Okay, so we selected a cluster of hospitals provided by emergency unit and rehabilitation unit, placed in the 3 biggest cities of Sicily. I mean, Messina, Catania, and Palermo. The experimental group undergoes a new feedback intervention by using telemedicine devices, while the control group is not undergoing an intervention because of the restriction due to the recent pandemic. Now there exists a different national and regional benchmark to measure the change to an audit feedback intervention, but they are only in the emergency setting. Suitable indicators in the rehabilitation setting are not defined yet. This is our main critical issue. So we are trying to define a small set of new possible indicators to expand the knowledge in this field. So just this national project, I think, is giving us the opportunity to develop and test a new audit and feedback intervention in order to support healthcare professionals and improve these healthcare pathways beyond just create a network of researchers in this field. Sorry. So thank you.
Thank you, Maria Cristina. Thank you. I don't know if Robbie or Sara want to comment, or we can go on with another experience from the north of Italy and Piemonte, Professor Gianni Ciccone. So Gianni, please, you can speak and go on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nerina, and many thanks to Sara and Robbie for the very interesting experiences. they are presented. We are conducting different audit and feedback intervention in oncology, but the two completed experience regard the use of audit and feedback as a strategy to implement the so-called enhanced recovery after surgery perioperative protocols for hysterectomy and colorectal cancer surgery in the entire regional hospital network of Piedmont, a region of northern Italy with more than 4 million inhabitants. And we involved all 32 regional hospitals performing these interventions. To estimate the impact of the intervention, we designed and conducted 2 cluster randomized stepped wedge trials with collection of detailed clinical data. The study were conducted between September 2019 and May 2021, a very unfortunate period since it was contemporary to the COVID emergency, and enrolled in each study about 4,000 patients. The audit and feedback strategy used during the study included an initial training courses for the ERAS teams, continuous monitoring of key performance indicators during the study. These indicators were continuously updated on the study website, and the production of periodic reports with meetings, online meetings for groups of hospitals, a final report, and a meeting for the presentation of the main results. Very briefly, the main results of both studies were similar. We observed very strong effects on most process indicators, but weaker effects, although important, on clinical outcomes. After study completion, we are planning a few initiatives to maintain or even improve these results. We are planning to send periodic reports about every 6 months on selected indicators that can be calculated from current or routine health data systems, to organize periodic meetings to discuss progresses, problems, and to exchange experiences between centers, and if needed, to update the ERAS protocols. And we are also thinking to ask all regional hospitals through the regional department of health, which is the highest health authority in the region, to report on the activities of the local ERAS teams. We are also considering sending a couple of questionnaires during the next year. This is very briefly the most important experience we have completed. Of course, we are pleased to receive any further suggestions to maintain a sustainable feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Gianni, for your comments. I don't know if now Robbie or Sara want to comment, but we think we will have possibility to go on with our knowledge each other and knowing results in progress in the future. Robbie and Sara, I suppose you agree.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, Sara, okay, you agree. And thank you. And we can go on with Sara and Robbie. We now will present the project in Lazio region, Central Italy, where Rome is located. Anna Campora, our colleague, will present. Hi, Anna. Present the work packages 1, the coordinating packages. So Anna, please, Anna.
Thanks, Nera, and thanks to Sara and Robbie for their presentation, and in particular for the 10 tips they presented. And as Nera said, I'm representing the work package 1 that is coordinated by the Lazio region. Our work package includes two different research lines. One is one addressing emergency care for myocardial infarction and stroke, and the second one facing with improving the adherence to guidelines for the management of chronic patients affected by diabetes, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD, and chronic heart failure. But now I would like to focus my intervention on this latter, chronic care, that targets mainly the general practitioners and involves also local health authorities and districts in which this practitioner work. In this research, we compared 3 groups before and after different kind of interventions. As Nera said, we had to change our study design from a randomized trial to before and after with a control group. So we have a control group that corresponds to a do-nothing group, in which general practitioners have usually access to 3 regional web-based platforms that regularly publish results of indicators about medical practice for diabetes, COPD, and chronic heart failure, and a lot of other conditions, acute and chronic conditions. A second group receive a middle intensive intervention in which general practitioners receive a periodic feedback report with indicators on their patients. The indicators will be calculated at the level of single GP and as a reference system. They will be compared to standard of care, if any, and to results obtained by the group of GPs working together, by the overall district, and at the level of local health authorities in which they are located. We will also add the results obtained by general practitioners defined as best performers at regional level. And these indicators will be calculated using a health administrative databases that is routinely collected at a regional level. This source provides the possibility to have access to a large set of demographical and clinical data, but on the other hand, they are not always timely, especially in this pandemic period. The third group is the high intensive intervention, and in this group the general practitioners, in addition to receiving the report, will be invited to participate in periodic multidisciplinary multi-professional meeting aimed to discuss critical indicators, related problems, and possible solutions. In these meetings will be also invited medical specialists for the conditions considered and representatives of the management of the health districts. These meetings will be also included in an educational training course, mainly about guidelines for the management of these diseases and about the audit and feedback methodology. And as an incentive, educational credits will be recognized to the general practitioners participating in the intervention. In this period, we are going to end up the practical organization of the overall intervention that is expected to officially start by January 2022 with an initial presentation meeting and the delivery of the baseline feedback report. The first report will be delivered as a PDF file, but we are also developing a dedicated dashboard that we expect to release for the second report that will be delivered in June 2022. Now, according to the point of view of this seminar, I would like to highlight that among all our purposes and activities, we are paying particular attention to avoid, or at least to reduce, the fact that our targets could perceive the intervention as imposed or as a mere judgment on their practice, or maybe just for a research interest. And even more important, we are paying attention to try strategies to maximize the opportunity to integrate these audit and feedback activities into the practice beyond the research project. And with these perspectives, since the planning and organizational phases, and especially now for the implementation steps of the intervention, we're making effort to share decision and to co-design several aspects, several characteristics and steps of the intervention with the involved professionals. Also general practitioners themselves, but also local health managers and GPs coordinator. For example, we discussed the selection of indicators to use and their calculation. We are also preparing a survey to support the periodic collection of feedback on feedback and to collect suggestions on how to improve feedback reports. And we also trying to harmonize, where possible, our intervention with other initiatives targeting the same communities, the same territories, and focused on similar topics. So these were our considerations about our challenge, and if you have any suggestion or any warning about this, thank you.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank
you very much. Okay, so I see that Sara and Robbie are following our presentation with interest, so thank you very much. And I will invite the last speaker of our research group, if you agree, Robbie and Sara. We are now going to the conclusion of our overview of our project. So we are today 5 out of 7 participating institutions. And I am pleased to call to speak Sabrina Licata from Friuli Venezia Giulia in the north of Italy. Thank you, Sabrina. Please, you can start.
Thank you, Nera. Well, as Nera said, we are Friuli Venezia Giulia, a region from the northeast of Italy. Well, our team focused its attention on the emergency system of our region, with particular regards to myocardial infarction, stroke, and major traumas, 3 time-dependent conditions. We have 3 groups in our team. The first one focused its attention on the single professional. We used virtual reality to create a system by which the single professional can train its skills and abilities for in different emergency situations, all created in virtual reality. The system can give to the trainees an immediate and instant feedback, and the training session can be repeated as many times as the professional wants. The aim of the second group instead is to analyze how our system works in real life. We created a list of more than 60 key performance indicators that are calculated each year based on the data of the previous year. We write a report, an annual report with the results. What is the aim? To create this picture and give it to the professionals, but also to our decision makers. So it's a way to underline how the system works, where it's needed to improve. The third group of the team instead use the real life data and the real life working of the system to integrate it with data analytics. What is the aim? The aim is to integrate the real situation with, for example, traffic or territory differences, or we have a region that goes from the sea to the high mountain. So there are very different paths and routes for a single emergency ambulance to go through the region. So the call system, the emergency call system, that is the aim in the future, naturally, can choose the best ambulance, departing from the right hospital and driving to the right path to arrive as fast as possible where is needed. In conclusion, we tried to involve all the actors of our emergency system, the professionals, the decision makers, the call system. Naturally, it's a work in progress, but we truly believe it can work in the future, and we can arrive where we want to arrive, naturally. So this is.
Thank you. Thank you, Sabrina. Thank you very much. So, Sara, Robbie, and all the audience, we have concluded our overview. We thank Robbie and Sara for listening to this our very short overview of our project. I suppose you understand it's a very complex and ambitious project. I suppose you found the large heterogeneity in the different study design, team project involved, and clinician behavior to be changed. So a sort of different, very variability. So it's very complex. Structure and time on data reporting, different ways of reporting. And I suppose also different actions to be implemented to improve. So it will be also difficult for us to summarize at the end of the project results from different contexts. But so we are now going on. As I said before, we have half and 1 year, so we'll end in 2023. So we are now to work very strongly. And we do hope to have the opportunity to meet you again in the future and share with you the results. So, as you understand, some of us have had already preliminary results. Others are back, no, because of COVID, because of difficulties. But we are a net, so we have to go together. And so this is the opportunity we have also to share, to help each other. This is the challenge of this project. We are not alone, we are together. So we think it's a good situation. I don't know if you want to just to comment on this overview. We would be very pleased to have some comments from you.
Would it be okay if I made 2 or 3 small comments? I'll try to be brief, and then allow Sarah to do the same if she wishes. First of all, thank you so much for presenting such a fascinating array of projects. I feel very guilty because after I said that the best evidence comes from randomized controlled trials, then it seemed as if I was being too critical for those of you who had to convert randomized trials into before-after studies. So I'm sorry about that. I think the issue there is that actually a pandemic is probably the best time to do randomized trials because time series analyses are so difficult to, and before-after studies are so difficult to interpret during major events. The problem we have with doing randomized trials is not that they're not the most appropriate tool. It's because, at least in the United Kingdom, the regulations around them are the things that make it most difficult to embed them efficiently into services. And then on the, and that made me think as well on the point of the oncology, the cancer program. It sounds as if you have a great platform from which you could do the sort of thing that we would like to do, so that in future when you are putting out feedback reports, you can experiment with them and maybe start randomizing hospitals to different iterations. So doing what we call A/B testing, as happens online, but to look at effects of differential effects of different ways of doing feedback. But again, there's a lot of work that has to go into actually organizing that and getting the funding for it. So I don't think it's easy. Two other comments. First, in the United Kingdom, I've got relationships with the body which commissions about 30 national clinical audits, which mostly cover most of the topics that you have covered as well. And I would hope at some point there would be, and probably if you work in your specialties, you will do this, you will have international exchanges and collaborations, but there might be opportunities from the audit programs to learn from one another. And then lastly, if you were interested, what we have designed out of one of the projects we have done is a set of suggestions or guidance for national clinical audit programs based upon evidence and theory that we are currently sharing with our audit programs. And it also includes what we call a report, it's a draft, but a report card, so that audits can assess themselves against good practice in how to do audit and feedback. So if you ever wanted me to share that, we'd be only too happy.
Thank you. Thank you, Robbie. Thank you very much. Thank you. And Sara, if you want to add something, we are very pleased to listen to you.
Yep, thank you very much. It sounds like you've got a fantastic range of projects going on, and it'd be really interesting to see what the results and how the results differ between different regions, topics, and what you're actually delivering in terms of the feedback. So particularly things like what I noticed from your descriptions is that some of them are very much just audit and feedback related, whereas others have lots of other more intensive strategies with other co-facilitation and other events taking place around the feedback too. And that's, you know, it's interesting because the first study that we presented, the Aspire one, had a whole package of things, but actually only worked for risky prescribing. Whereas the opioid study, which followed on from that, was just audit and feedback. There was no education, there was no going out to the practices and delivering sort of feedback facilitation. And that was pretty successful on its own. So there's something not only about the topic, but also the situation that people find themselves in as to whether or not, you know, actually other things are needed on top of feedback. I find that quite interesting. But yes, I think you've got a great program of work, and I'll be really, you know, very pleased to see what results you get out of this.
Thank you very much.